guys, Leanne here on GradysMom. Today I have a foodie Q&A. I actually used my YouTube community tab to kind of ask you guys if you had any foodie related questions for me, and I actually got a lot of questions. I also had some questions that people emailed me as well, and I'm going to answer as many of those as I possibly can. I will be doing an updated normal non-food Q&A as well. I hope to be able to film that right after Christmas when I get my new camera and get familiar with how it works. So I have all your questions. I'm going to answer a question that I got a few times in my email. And I'm going to be saying names because I told everybody in the YouTube community tab that I'm going to be saying names unless you guys tell me you don't want me to. So three people emailed me, and pretty much the question was, and I actually get this question a lot in real life, was people see what I eat and they wonder, how do I stay so skinny? Well, first of all, I will say I'm not skinny. I don't think I've ever tried to give anybody the impression that I was skinny. Not that I am bashing myself or saying that I'm overweight or anything like that, because I'm certainly not overweight. But I guess everybody has an idea in their mind of what skinny is. To me, skinny is like a size 0, 120 pounds. I don't know. Not even necessarily a weight. I just don't consider myself to be a skinny person. I consider myself just to be kind of an average, like regular size person. I'm not skinny, I'm not big, I'm just somewhere kind of in the middle. I do weigh about 150 pounds. So again, to me, in my mind at least, that's just not how I would classify skinny. So to answer the question, how do I stay so skinny? I pretty much have been very blessed in my life. I just have a fast metabolism. That's really what I can sum it up as. I'm also a very active person. Now, I don't go to the gym every day or run 5 miles every day or count calories or macros. I don't do any of that. I just kind of try to be conscious of the amount of snacking I do before meals, in between meals. I try not to eat, like I kind of try to tell myself, if it's after like 7:30 p.m., don't eat. Sometimes I will munch a little bit at night if I'm watching a show or a movie, but I really just try to be conscious about like not eating between meals, eating late at night. I try to be conscious of like my portion control and not have like, 3 huge plates of food. But I'm not somebody that obsesses over it or counts calories or grams of fat or macros or anything like that. I really just sum it up to maintaining what I think personally is a healthy weight. My weight normally fluctuates between like 145 and 150. I kind of usually end up in my adult life fluctuating between the 140s and 150 range. How? I don't know. Again, I just really chalk it up to like genetics and maybe metabolism. I certainly don't take it for granted because I know there are a lot of people that tell me all the time, I wish I could eat what you eat and be your size. So that's pretty much how I'm going to answer that question. And then I'm going to move into a whole bunch of questions now that I have screenshotted. So these aren't in any particular order. It's just the order that I have them screenshotted in. So Stacy Daniel asks, do you like to organize your pantry in a particular way? What's your favorite things to keep stock in the pantry? So I do have a few pantry videos, pantry specific videos on my channel. I'll link them in this video down below if you want to check them out. My favorite, I do like to organize in a particular way. I like to group things in kind of categories, and I use a lot of different bins and baskets, like a lot of rectangular or square baskets to organize a lot of things. And again, I'll link those videos down below. So I like to group things in category like a snack bin and a chip bin, and like sometimes I'll do Grady's snacks, Grady's fruit pouches, Grady's and then like our salty snacks, our sweet snacks. So I kind of try and group things in categories. I recently bought like a basket or a bin for my cooking oils. So my olive oil, canola oil, sesame oil is all grouped in a bin. So I kind of try to to group things into categories. Hopefully that makes sense. And she also said, what's your favorite thing to keep stock in the pantry? Definitely snacks, because me, my husband, and Grady like snacks. And I always like to keep staple things like and everybody's staple things are different. For me, things like chicken broth, things like beef broth, things like different beans. So I like to keep red beans, garbanzo beans, white beans or cannellini beans, lentils. I like to keep a lot of beans, a lot of broth, because with beans and broth, I can take things out of my fridge, whether it's meat or fresh veggies, chop everything up, throw it in a crock pot or a pot and make a soup. So that's always a really go-to thing. So my favorite thing to stock, I would have to say, would be like, for me, my essentials, which are beans, rice, pasta, that kind of thing. So hopefully that answers your question, Stacy. Peggy asks, hi honey, what are some of your tried and true recipes that you love to cook? Tried and true, I like to make homemade soups of all different kinds, whether it's ones I've made a million times before or ones that I'm kind of just making up as I go, but I really like to make homemade soups. I really like to make pasta bakes, which is just, you boil a bunch of pasta and then I like to throw together a bunch of things for my fridge. So leftover meat, cheese. Pasta bakes for me are pasta with some kind of meat, some kind of veggie, whether it's chopped up veggies, leftover steamed veggies, cheese, toss it all together. Sometimes with a sauce, like a red sauce, sometimes it could be just olive oil and seasonings. I've used all different things. I just made a pasta bake the other night and I used Hidden Valley Ranch a dry seasoning packet of Hidden Valley Ranch as like the flavor. So I really like to experiment with soups and pasta bakes. So I hope that answers your question, Peg. Jennifer's Life asks, what is a few of your top dinner recipes that you like to make often? Okay, so my no-fail recipes. I would say I like to make my white turkey goulash, which is a Crockpot recipe. I have a video on that, I'll link it below. I like to make a whole chicken in the crock pot. I have a video on that also. Anything I have a video on, guys, will be in the description box down below. I like Mississippi chicken. I like to make a white bean chicken chili. I love to make soups in the crock pot. My all-time favorite soup to make is a crock pot soup. It's just beef or chicken broth, whatever you have on hand. You pan fry some sausage up. I drain the fat. I throw the sausage in the broth. I add a can of beans and then a bunch of different veggies. I let it cook on low for like 6 hours and it's perfect every time. Add a little bit of pasta and some Parmesan cheese and it's perfect. So pretty much those are my favorites, the ones which you guys have seen before or heard me talk about before in many different meal plans and videos in general. All right, guys, next question is from Tiffany Panisi. What is your favorite easy chicken dish? I'm running out of ideas. We usually buy chicken breast instead of chicken with bones. Thanks. Well, I'm actually not the hugest fan of chicken breast, which might surprise some people. Now, I don't hate chicken breast by any means. I eat it pretty much on a regular basis, but I'm actually a dark meat person. I like chicken thighs, chicken legs, chicken wings. If you are somebody that doesn't like chicken with bones, I would recommend trying a boneless, skinless chicken thigh. They're very easy to find in any major grocery store. I just personally, again, just personal preference, I like chicken thighs. I think they are juicier. They are, to me, pretty similar to a breast, except they're just juicier. They're moister. I think they have more flavor. That's just personal preference. So some of my favorite chicken dishes, which I had mentioned, I think a couple in the previous question, Mississippi chicken. Have a video on that. I'll link it below. I love to do a whole chicken in the crock pot. It's really easy on a busy day. I like the white chicken chili in the crock pot. Other chicken dishes, I like, let's see, chicken Parmesan. I'm definitely a chicken person. I really enjoy it. But Tiffany, I will link a few of those chicken recipes down below. Amy from the Dancing Mommy asks, hey babe, how did you find your Instant Pot? I'm not sure exactly what it can do. I've been toying with the idea of getting one for Christmas. So I will be completely honest. I did a video and a review on my Instant Pot. I do genuinely like my Instant Pot. However, I don't use it that much. I reach for my crock pot much more often. I think really an Instant Pot could be great for certain people. Phenomenal for certain people. I think there are a lot of benefits to it. I just don't feel that I have enough experience using mine. I've really probably only used mine in the past year about a dozen times compared to my Crockpot that I use almost every week. The Instant Pot that I have was actually sent to me by the company to try it out, and pretty much the terms of that sponsorship were they would send me the Instant Pot. It's like a clay Instant Pot. I will put that video down below. And pretty much the terms of that partnership was I was to be sent the pot to use at my own leisure, and if and only if I liked it, enjoyed it, and wanted to share it, I could do a video. So I do like my Instant Pot. I just don't really reach for it as much as my Crockpot. Just because of my personal lifestyle, I'm always on the go, and with an Instant Pot, it's something that you have to kind of be present. You can't really just turn an Instant Pot on and then leave for the day. I hope that makes sense. But Amy, if you're somebody that's home more throughout the day, or maybe there's certain days of the week where you know that you're home more, I think that might be a good fit for you. I really like the one I have, the VitaClay. So if you are interested in that one, you can check mine out. Otherwise, I would just suggest looking on just Google like Instant Pots, like the best ones, and read reviews to see which one might be the best fit, because they come in all different sizes. And some of them vary a little bit, so I would just check reviews. I always check reviews for products because I find that real life people like you and I give the best product reviews as consumers and as people that use the items. So next question is from my friend Bria. Her YouTube is Bria as a Mom. She writes, "Hey sweet friend, can't wait to see this video. You know how much I love seeing the things you cook. Is there anything you flat out refuse to cook or serve? If so, how come?" I wouldn't say like I refuse to cook it or serve it, but there are things that I just don't like. So obviously if I don't like them, I'm not going to cook them. I wouldn't call it like a refusal, but I actually do not eat fish. I like shellfish, so I eat things like clams and crab and shrimp and scallops. I'm just not a fan of like fish. So things like salmon or tilapia or trout, like fish, I just don't eat because I just don't like it. There's no particular reason. For whatever reason, it's just never appealed to me. It's never done anything for me. So I would say fish. I do cook it for my husband. So I can't say I can't say like I refuse to cook it. I just don't cook it for me, but I will cook it for Matt sometimes. And mainly you asked how come, just because I don't like it. Kristen G asks, favorite Dutch oven recipe, looking into getting one. I actually have a Dutch oven, but I don't use it much. I actually use that less than my Instant Pot, simply because the size is a little off. So the Dutch oven that I have, I wish I would have grabbed it right now, but it's not small, but it's not large. It's kind of that medium size. The size is just a little bit off for me. I can't really say, Kristen, unfortunately, my favorite recipe in one, because I really don't use mine that much. But when a previous job that I had working for a family where I did a lot of cooking, they used Dutch ovens a lot. And I really enjoyed cooking like chicken dishes. There was a dish we used to make with chicken breasts and chicken thighs in the Dutch oven with lentil. It was like a red lentil, kind of an Italian-y dish, but it had lentils in it. I really can't give you a specific recipe because I don't use mine nearly enough to be able to do that. But if anything changes, I will definitely let you know, because I see you all the time in my comments, Kristen, and I appreciate it. Okay, Patricia Costner asks, do you clean chicken before cooking or adding to the crock pot? Thank you. I would say I just rinse it. I just take it out of the package. Usually it's frozen, I rinse it, and then I pat it dry. I particularly would recommend patting your meat of any kind dry if you're going to pan fry it. Honestly, or except for the crock pot, I pretty much always pat dry my meat. I think it browns better and cooks better and tastes better. Chastity Belcamp asks, meals for working moms that are quick to cook and quick to clean up. I work long days and my commute back and forth to work is a little over an hour one way. By the time I get home, I truly want to make something as simple as possible. Quick meals, let's see. I really like the Pioneer Woman Sloppy Joe recipe. It's really easy. Tacos are always an easy one at my house. Tacos are super easy. I like a lot of ground beef dishes as quick dishes. I can make a really quick meat sauce. The chili recipe I use is really quick and easy. Again, just have your beef thawed out, ready to go right in the pan when you walk in the door. I would say chili, tacos. I would say BLTs are really easy to do. You could even cook your bacon beforehand and just put it in a Ziploc bag with a piece of paper towel. So when you get home from work, you can just pull everything out, chop up your lettuce, tomato, your bacon's all cooked, toast up some bread. BLTs are easy. And if you're really crunched for time, I love making a big, huge dinner salad. You don't even have to have meat, or you could use meat that you have left over, like leftover steak or leftover chicken. You could chop it up and put it on a big, huge dinner salad. You can't go wrong with a grilled sandwich of some kind with some meat, some cheese, or just some cheese and tomato. Breakfast for dinner is a really quick meal as well for dinner, even though it's breakfast. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Jennifer Chapin asked, does your son eat the same meal that you and your husband do? Normally he does not. I have a special needs child. He is a very picky eater. He has a lot of sensory issues. He also eats on a different schedule than we do. So my son usually is eating dinner around 4:30, sometimes even 4 o'clock, because he is in bed for the night by 7 o'clock. 6:30, he's in the tub. We lotion him up. He gets his pajamas on. We read him books, and he is sleeping out like a light by 7 o'clock. So he's on a little bit different of a schedule than we are meal-wise. And unfortunately, like I said, he does not eat the same things we eat a majority of the time. He eats very limited food. He likes to eat the same things over and over. So he likes things like grilled cheese, mac and cheese. He likes pasta with a little bit of red sauce and a little bit of butter in it. He likes chicken nuggets. He likes pizza. He likes, I guess you could call it like kid food, if that makes any sense at all. So I usually try to make him something like that. I'll give him some fresh fruit, give him some water, and then sometimes he might have, depending on what I make and what we eat, he might eat something that, anytime he shows interest in something that we're eating, of course I offer it to him. There are a lot of times where I offer him what we are eating, even though I know he's most likely not going to even try it, just for the principle of being curious and maybe he will try it. I personally don't believe in forcing him to eat anything. I know other people differ, and there are people that do force their kids. I don't judge anybody. I just personally don't believe in forcing my son to eat something. Obviously, I want him to try things, even if he doesn't like them, because that's how I was brought up, but I just kind of try to go with the flow and not get frustrated over it, and not get bent into shape over it, because for a long time I would just stay up, 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about, just being so distraught. Why is my child not wanting to eat vegetables or not wanting to try new things? And I just let that go, guys, and I'm a much happier person now. He's happy, he's healthy. There are no, he doesn't have any concerns with his nutrition. So I'm just doing the best I can, and hopefully in time he will change his mind and open his mind up to try new things. But for now, I'm just doing the best that I can possibly do with him. Okay. Next question is from Chelsea M. What are some items you freeze that people wouldn't think of freezing? Do you recommend buying bulk meats then separating them to freeze, or do you buy meats as you need them in smaller packages? I think most of the items that I freeze, guys, you guys already know about. Like, the main thing is that some people were maybe curious about is I freeze a lot of bread. So I freeze bagels, I freeze English muffins, I freeze regular bread, I freeze hamburger rolls. Anything bread related, I freeze it, especially if I know I'm not going to use all of it right away. And obviously, food is not cheap. So anything, if I buy a big package of bagels or English muffins, I will just take out what I think I will use within the immediate time frame, and then I will freeze the rest of it. I can't really think of anything that I freeze that people maybe wouldn't think of freezing. I mean, veggies, fruit, I feel like most people know about that. I freeze cheese, I freeze butter, but hopefully I don't know if these would be considered things that people wouldn't think of freezing. And she asked, again, do you recommend buying bulk meats and separating to freeze, or do you buy meats as you need them in smaller packages? I would recommend buying bulk meats if you have a bigger family, or if you do a lot of meal prep. which a lot of people these days do meal prep. If you buy in bulk, my recommendation would be to immediately before you freeze it, portion it out into what you need. So if you are, say, a family of 4 and you buy a 10-pound thing of chicken, I would portion it out to whatever you think your family would need for a meal. So if that's maybe 2 pounds, I would freeze 5 2-pound bags out of a 10-pound bag container of chicken. Hopefully that makes sense. So I would, money-wise, I would recommend buying in bulk if you have a larger family. Or again, if you're just even a smaller family that goes through a lot of meat with meal prep or dinners, I would say buying in bulk is always best if you can afford it, because it's cheaper, like a cheaper unit price. And then again, you can freeze everything and then just pull things out as you need it. Next question is Amanda P. She says, I know you've showed us how to make a sandwich wrap in your What's for Lunch series, but I can never make a wrap without making the tortilla soggy by lunchtime. Help. Yours always look on point. Thank you. I would say for wraps in particular, the key is a few things. You're not going to want to use a crazy amount of condiment. So if you are using, for example, ranch dressing as a condiment, don't saturate the wrap in ranch because it's going to soak into the ranch. If I am using something like mayo or mustard, you can go a little bit heavier with that if you like, because it's not as liquidy as like a ranch or like an Italian dressing, for example. If you're using ranch or Italian dressing, I would recommend trying to put the condiment somewhere in the middle. So maybe putting down the cheese first and then like lettuce or tomato and then putting the condiment on top of that, and then the meat on, like, you almost want to sandwich the condiment in between the meat and the cheese, if that makes sense, so that when you wrap it up, the condiment isn't touching the wrap directly. But I would just say don't go extremely heavy on the condiment. Or another option is make the wrap with no condiments and pack your condiments on the side in like a little container with a lid. And then you can always drizzle the condiment over the wrap or dip your wrap in the condiment. I don't really know, guys. I don't know how my wraps always come out so good. I guess I never realized that they did until you guys started saying that to me. It was just always what I've always done. So I've never really gave it any thought until you guys started mentioning that my wraps look great and everything, which I appreciate, but I never realized that they looked better than anyone else's. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay guys, this video is gonna be so long. I apologize. Okay, so the next question is from Hannah Crone. She says, have you ever tried the carne asada from Trader Joe's? It looks so good, but I'm nervous to buy it. I have never tried that. I'm pretty sure I know what you're referring to, but I have personally never tried it. So unfortunately, I can't give an opinion on it. But I will say most of the meats I've ever gotten from Trader Joe's have been delicious. So my advice would be try it and maybe get the smallest one that you can, the smallest package that you can, if that's an option, and try it out, because chances are it's probably pretty good. I'm a Trader Joe's fan. Terry Lynn asks, in your What I Eat in a Day video, you mentioned that you are usually on the run during lunchtime throughout the week. What are some of your favorite places to grab a quick lunch? Off the top of my head, I would say Chipotle, Panera Bread, and there's a place in Charlotte here called Mod Pizza, M-O-D. It's kind of like a make your own pizza, make to order, like a brick oven individual pizza. Very thin crust, crispy, delicious. I get all different toppings, whatever I'm in the mood for. I'm pretty sure that's a chain, Mod Pizza. But yeah, I would say Panera, Chipotle, and Mod Pizza are my favorite places to grab a quick lunch when I'm out and about during the week. Okay, Brooke Sarlati, hopefully I'm saying that right, says, love your videos. You say you do a lot of cooking at home. My issue is the time I spend dealing with the mess that comes with that, whether it's prep or cleanup. What are some tips to minimize the time spent doing that? For me, the number one thing with cleanup and cooking and messes is try to clean as you go. So if you have a couple pans or pots that are cooking, different things at the same time, once those pots and things are under control, or maybe there's things in the oven, I would just say try to get as much little cleanup done while things are under control. So when something's in the oven or something's in the stovetop and you've just stirred it, I would try to maybe do things like wipe down the counters. If you have like maybe cans of items or packaging that, you know, are empty now from things that you're using in your recipes. Maybe go ahead and rinse out the cans, put them in recycling, throw out any wrappers. If there's maybe like vegetable scraps or any kind of food scraps, throw those out. If your sink is cluttered, I would say load your dishwasher. Even if it's just throwing a few things, silverware or cups or anything, throw them in the dishwasher. If you don't have a dishwasher, try and maybe hand wash a few things. Wipe down counters really quick and just kind of put things away, because sometimes cooking can be really chaotic until you get the hang of it, you know, especially if you're a new or a beginning cook. It can seem really overwhelming, but if you kind of use that clean as you go rule, I find that it has helped me over the years. Let me make sure I answered all that. So hopefully that is good. And my other tip I can give you is, once I'm done with dinner, you know, completely done, I used to, when I was younger, I would just put everything in the sink and then just leave everything, and then I would end up getting busy and not being able to get to it until like it was time to go to bed. And it was just really depressing, because who wants to, you know, do a sink full of dishes and scrub pots and stuff right before bed? So now what I do is I finish eating, I give myself a few minutes to sit and relax, and then immediately I get up and my husband and I tackle the dishes. We load the dishwasher. If pots need to be soaked, we fill up pots with like soapy hot water. We wipe down the counters. I wipe down my stove. I pretty much just eat, relax for a few minutes, and get right to cleaning up the kitchen. Otherwise, it will just sit there, and I can't go to bed, me personally, with like a sink full of dishes and plates everywhere and a mess. It's just something that I personally don't like doing. I like to wake up and have a clean kitchen. That's just me. But I would say clean as you go, and try and clean up as soon as possible after dinner. And if possible, get your kids and your husband or your partner involved in that cleanup process, so it takes a little bit of the stress off of you. Yvette, hopefully I'm not going to say your last name wrong. Yvette Munguia asks, what's your favorite meal to cook at home, and what's your favorite meal when you were out, and where is it from? My favorite meals to cook at home are probably pasta dishes. I really like to do a lot of freestyle pasta dishes, whether it's pasta bakes, which I mentioned earlier, or just making some pasta and kind of adding a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I know not everybody is capable of that, which I totally understand. This is something that I have learned from many years of living on my own. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 18. I'm almost 37 years old, so I've had a lot of time to have to live on my own and learn how to cook a meal, and you know, I've learned how to experiment with cooking. I also went to school for cooking, so I also worked at a lot of restaurants. So I personally have a lot of like food and cooking and a culinary background. So for me, it obviously probably comes a lot easier than somebody who's never had that type of background. I also grew up in a very food-oriented home. My mom is an amazing home cook. Her mom was an amazing cook. Even my dad is a pretty great cook. So I was really blessed that I was able to grow up around good food and seeing things being homemade and seeing my mom experiment in the kitchen. And that's where the love that I have for food and for cooking sort of stemmed from as a child. So I would just say, favorite meal to cook at home, I would probably say, oh, that is so hard because I have so many of them. I would just say a nice pasta dish. I can't even tell you what pasta dish in particular, but I really like pasta dishes. I really like comfort food. I'm a big meat and potatoes girl. One of my favorites is probably, I'd have to say, like a roast chicken with mashed potatoes and a veggie and maybe like a roll or some crusty bread. I'm definitely a big carb person. I'm a meat and potatoes girl, and you guys know this. Pasta, again, carbs. And then she asked too, when you were out, where is your favorite meal from? That is really hard because I really base a lot of what I eat on my moods and what I'm in the mood for. That is so difficult. I will say one of my favorite places, one of my favorite things to eat when I'm out is short ribs. I love short ribs. There's a place here in Charlotte called Cantina 1511. And they make some of the best braised short ribs, beef short ribs I've ever had. I don't know what they do. I know there's white beans and like a tomato-based sauce, but they literally melt in your mouth. They are so delicious. So I would say, I'd have to say short ribs because it's something I don't make at home. I don't have it that often, so that's why I think I'll go with short ribs. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay. Constantine Transit asks, I recently got a deep freezer. Do you make freezer meals? What kind of food items do you freeze to save money? I do make freezer meals. Sometimes, every once in a while, I will make a dinner for a friend. So I will make them like a tray of something. Just the other night, I made a pasta bake with leftover ham, and that I mentioned earlier, the Hidden Valley Ranch seasoning, which sounds weird, but I'm telling you guys, cooking is experimental. You have to try new things. I have come up with some of my best recipes from just experimenting. But unfortunately, if you don't experiment and try new things, you're never really going to grow. So I would definitely encourage you, if you're somebody that already loves to cook, or maybe you're a beginning cook and you're really interested in it, I would definitely say do not be afraid to experiment, because that sometimes your biggest experiments will become your favorite meals. At least that's what's happened to me. But yes, I do make freezer meals. I freeze soups. I freeze, like I'll make things like shepherd's pie. I will make a lot of those pasta bakes like I keep mentioning, and I will freeze those. I've made mini meatloaf. I've made regular meatloaf. I try just to think about, you know, if I'm making something already and then I know that I could easily double that recipe and freeze it, I will do that. I've made freezer crockpot meals. Really, you'd be surprised, guys, how many things you can freeze as long as it's wrapped well. A lot of things freeze very well. And then the other part of the question was, what kinds of food items do you freeze to save money? I would definitely say meat is a big one. Again, like I mentioned, we're just a family of 3, so I don't often buy like 10-pound things of chicken or 10-pound things of beef. But every once in a while, I will try and buy things in bulk, especially if like my parents are visiting for the week, or my sister or my brother are here. But I would say for a bigger family, meat is definitely a big one if you're a meat eater. Buying things in bulk is always great. You could buy bread in bulk and freeze that if you go through a lot of bread. So hopefully that answers that for you. Haley Rowe asks, any tips on fridge organization? I always lose track of things and waste leftovers. Tips. I try to stock my fridge when I go to the grocery store, and my goal is usually to have it try to be pretty empty by the time I need to go to the grocery store again. I am constantly kind of taking a mental inventory. I look in like my produce drawer, and then I have like a meat and cheese drawer. So I'm constantly looking at things that are maybe getting towards that area where you want to use it up or it's going to go bad. So I try to, I'm not always perfect, I try to plan my meals around, like if I have 4 zucchini that are, you know, getting to that point where you're going to want to use them up, I try to plan that week to make something with zucchini. If I have a bunch of, you know, potatoes or tomatoes, I try to just plan something that can use all that up. There are times when I have a ton of eggs, so I'll make egg salad or deviled eggs. So really just try and leftovers, Haley, bring them to work. If you can, bring them to work. Leftovers, unfortunately, here don't last very long. Usually if I have leftovers from a dinner, I eat it for lunch the next day, or we will have it as a dinner. So don't be afraid to use your leftovers as a second night dinner. And if it's not enough, maybe make something on the side to make it a complete meal. It's definitely a shame to have to throw out perfectly good food. We all do it. We've all done it. But I would just try to say, take it to work. Try to be conscious of what you have so it doesn't go bad, and see if there's any way you could utilize it so that you can avoid having to throw it out. Gertie asks, when you freeze bread or anything really, do you wrap it in anything in particular, or do you have any tips or tricks? Bread, I honestly, guys, just put it in like a freezer Ziploc gallon, a big one, bag. I make sure the zipper is really tight, and then I throw it right in the freezer. If you wanted to take it a step further, you could wrap things individually in saran wrap and then aluminum foil, and then put it in a freezer bag. I don't do that, only because bread things go very quickly in my home, so I know that I'm going to use it up quickly. Especially in the summer, we go through a lot of like rolls and stuff in the summer because we grill like burgers or turkey burgers or hot dogs. So I really don't have like any tips. I would just say, you know, maybe put a date on the bag, like the month, at the very least, so you know how long it's been frozen for, so you can be sure and try to use it up. But I wouldn't really say like I have any tips or tricks. I just throw stuff in a bag, like I said, make sure the zipper's tight, and then I kind of thaw it out and use it as I go. Sparkles Dales asks, hi, are there nights when you and your husband want different things to eat for dinner? If so, do you cook 2 separate meals? No. I don't cook 2 separate meals for my husband and I. We eat the same thing every night. He is a very good eater. He's not picky. He's actually much less picky than me, and I don't even consider myself a picky eater. Everything that I make, I know it's going to be something he's going to like, so thankfully I don't have that problem. Desiree TV asks, do you have any tips on budgeting monthly food expenses or a budget system in place? Love your channel. Thank you. We spend, and I've talked about this before, we spend between $150 and $200 a week on groceries. We're a family of 3. Now, it could be a little broad because that monetary amount also includes household things. So if I need laundry detergent, or we need tissues, or we need toothpaste, or we need body wash, so that's a budget. It's a little bit broad because that's a budget for everything. My cat food, my cat's litter, paper goods, you know, things like that. I do try to get a majority of those things at BJ's. So things like paper towels, toilet paper, etc. I tend to try to get those at BJ's. But my weekly budget is $150 to $200. I like to be closer to that $150 mark. Obviously, if we have guests and stuff, then I can stretch it because we need more food. But I do try to keep my food and, you know, household budget around $150 a week. There are some weeks where I go over because I'm not perfect, and then there are other weeks where I might only have to spend $80. So it really does vary. I wouldn't say I really have, I don't know if the question was if I had any, if I have a budget system in place. That's really my budget, $150 to $200 a week for food, drinks, and household items. Of course, I always try to stay closer to the 150 mark than the 200 mark. But like I mentioned, I'm not perfect, and sometimes I might splurge a little and get a little bit more. And then again, sometimes I might have weeks where I only spend like $80. So it really just kind of varies. I know it's different when, you know, the bigger your family is, the more sometimes you have to be conscious of that. But because we have one son and just one cat, we don't have a large family, we don't have a large amount of pets. It's fairly easy for us just to kind of keep on it because of the fact that we're not feeding a whole bunch of mouths. Shauna Anderson asks, do you usually make a separate meal for your son, or do you try to feed him the same meal that you prepare for you and your husband? I have a picky eater, so just looking for tips with other moms from other moms with picky eaters. My son was not picky until he was 2. Before he was 2, he ate anything and everything you could give him, from broccoli to fish to any fruit or vegetable. When he turned 2, that's when he became very picky. And now he, just like I mentioned earlier, he has a very short list of hot, like, dinner items that he wants to eat. I would just say keep trying. Don't stress yourself out about it. If you're doing the best you possibly can, that's all you can do. Maybe if it's, I don't know the extent of it, but if he's really picky, I would maybe try to consider food therapy. I did that with my son 2 summers ago. So, no, wait, last summer, not the past summer we just had. So yeah, 2 summers ago, my son did food therapy for the summer. I wouldn't say in our case it really helped that much, but it was a really, really interesting and good learning experience for me as a mom. So I would just say, I don't know, again, the extent of your picky eater situation or how old your picky eater is. But I would just say, depending on the severity of it, you could always talk to your pediatrician. Maybe there's something they can recommend. But my advice would just be keep trying. Don't stress yourself out about it because it really just makes things worse. Just try to stay calm. Try to roll with punches. Try to offer new things. Don't make a big deal out of it. Like, even now, if I make a dish that I think my son maybe would try, I just casually put it in front of him on a plate. I don't make a big deal out of it and make it seem like he has to eat it or else. Again, I don't believe in forcing. Of course, I want him to eat what I eat. It would make my life a whole lot easier. Of course, I don't want to cook him a separate little meal. But unfortunately, in our case, everybody's case is different. There are a lot of picky eaters. You guys would be very surprised at the amount of people that I encounter both in real life as well as on YouTube that's kids whose children are more picky than my son. So even if you think, you know, you're ready to pull your hair out and you're at the end of your rope, as far as picky eaters go, I would just say try to just take a breath, remain calm, stay positive, just keep offering new things. You know, my son's very phasey. You know, right now he wants 2 bananas every day. Last month he didn't want anything to do with the banana. So you just really do the best you can. You roll with the punches, you offer new things, just try not to make a big deal out of it and make a big production about it. I find my son personally responds better to trying new things when he's feeling like it's his own free will and he's not being forced into it or manipulated into it. And I'm just more casual about it and kind of use that approach. That's what's worked a little bit better for us, but I know every family is different. So all of you moms with picky eaters, just hang in there. You're not alone. You'd be surprised how many people have picky eaters. I have even found people who don't talk about it, maybe because they could be embarrassed or they could feel like they're the only ones whose kids don't eat everything. You guys would be very surprised how many people front that their kids eat everything, and in actuality their kids are just as picky as your kid and my kid, but for whatever reason some people, not judging, just don't want to admit that. I've always been open and honest that my son is picky, and I don't feel that it's anything to be embarrassed about. It's nobody's fault. Kids are picky. Kids are finicky. You can't expect every single child to eat every single thing you put in front of them. It's just not reality. And for those of you whose kids genuinely do eat everything, I envy you. I'm jealous. That is great. And that's awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Q&A. I know it was really long. I'm sorry about that. I tried to go as quickly and efficiently as I could. I hope you guys enjoyed it again, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.